Hi, mystery writers. Oh, today I wanted to talk about um, preparing your scene. Before you write the scene, taking a few minutes to think about it, um, because it'll help you write a better, more engaging scene for your readers. Because scenes are the building blocks of our stories, and each scene moves the story forward. As you build your story, you can alternate between action and reaction. Before you write a scene, you need to know the basic structure of the type of scene that's coming next in your story. So, and then after you've written your scene, you can use this checklist to kind of make sure that you have all the parts, as it were. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the two types of scenes, um, and they are the action and the reaction scenes, and they build your mystery, and you alternate between proactive scenes and reactive scenes to build your story in increments. Um, First is, for example, a just very simplistic explanation. First, your protagonist sleuth does something, right? And that's the action. They've done something. And then your sleuth has to deal with the consequences of taking action, and that's the reaction. And both types of scene incorporate conflict. Uh, and that's so important that you want that conflict in your scene, except that the conflict is different between the two scenes. So let's look at each type of scene and see how they work. First is the proactive scene, and that these are the scenes that challenge your sleuth. I call them trigger scenes. We're writing mysteries, and they move the story forward by involving your sleuth in a problem. And so the way it works is your sleuth has a goal, and they try to achieve the goal, but obstacles challenge your sleuth as the scene moves forward. And at the end of the scene, your sleuth has a setback. That's pretty much how it works. By the end of the scene, your protagonist has not only failed to reach that goal that they had at the beginning of the scene, but they're worse off than they were at the beginning. So here's a quick checklist for your proactive scene. First of all, you want to know the primary point of view character. For many of us, it is the detective, and for some of us, the scenes may alternate the point of view in the scene. But whatever that point of view is, you want to stick with that point of view within that particular scene. And then you want to know, what is that scene protagonist's goal at the beginning of the scene? And you want to keep that goal simple, uh, because this is just one small part of the story, right? So they may be going to meet a suspect. That's simple, right? And then you want to have an objective for that goal so the reader can visualize the success. So, for instance, your protagonist is going to meet a suspect, and then the protagonist thinks this is the suspect that's going to fit everything in place because of something they know or something like that. But anyway, you state uh, what that objective is so your reader has a clear understanding of what the expectations are for the scene, because we're going to not reach those expectations. All right. So, and you want to make the goal worthwhile. If it isn't worthwhile, just cut the scene, and then make the goal achievable in the protagonist's point of view. This is something the protagonist can actually do. So your reader has an expectation that things are going to go okay. But then you're going to make it difficult for the scene protagonist to achieve their objective, whatever it is. And that's where you create the conflict that keeps your protagonist from reaching their goal, that scene goal, right? And even with obstacles, you don't want to let the protagonist give up. So so they start off with a goal. There's some kind of obstacle that creates a conflict or difficulty for that scene protagonist. Um, but you don't want them to give up. I mean, the story's going to be over if they give up, right? But you also want to make the obstacle unexpected. This is where you can put in the little twists in your story. But of course, you want to keep it logical. You want to maintain that story logic. So you can put your hero or heroine in the worst possible situations as they seek what seems like an obtainable goal at the beginning of the scene. That's kind of the setup. At the beginning of the scene, they're just going to go do something. It seems like an obtainable goal. And then the obstacle is what creates the conflict. And you have a vivid imagination, so you can come up with all kinds of obstacles your um, for your protagonist. All right, so that's the proactive scene. What is the reactive scene like? The this is these are names that were given by the snowflake guy Randy. I can't talk. Randy Ingermanson. And so now your protagonist has to deal with the fact that they didn't reach the goal in the last scene. Right? This is why you alternate these scenes. And now that your protagonist is thwarted, it's time to give your protagonist some space. They have to figure out, one, what really happened, and two, what they're going to do next. So this is a scene where they make a decision about what they're going to do next. So you want to begin with the protagonist's reaction to what just happened. So at the beginning of this scene, instead of a goal, you have a reaction to that frustration that happened in the last proactive scene. And now your protagonist has to figure out what his or her options are. And if the setback was significant, this is something that can often happen in the third act of our four-act structure. If that setback was significant, your protagonist may have to let me put it a different way. Your protagonist may have no apparent options. This is when they feel really stuck, right? And they need to look at the dilemma and choose an option. And these options can be, say there are two options and neither of them seems good. So now you're setting up for what's going to come next in the next proactive scene, because when your protagonist makes that choice, they're going on in that final part of the scene. They've made a decision, and that decision is the goal for the next scene. So the proactive scene has a goal, starts with a goal, and ends with a frustration. And the reactive scene starts with the frustration and ends with a new goal. So I know this sounds very simplistic, and I've talked about this before, but if you alternate these scenes, it's going to keep your reader in suspense. So let's just talk a little bit about the checklist for the reactive scene. Um, you want to clarify your protagonist's vision of the problem at the beginning. They had this problem that resulted from the actions they took in the last scene, and now they need to know what the problem is before they can figure out what to do with it, because um, they're starting out just reacting to the scene. So you can think of it as a mini goal, I guess, in that they have to figure out what their decision is. So you keep the reader with your protagonist by visualizing what that character will do next. In the same way, in the proactive scene, you let the reader know what how your protagonist visualizes that goal. In the reactive scene, um, you're going to help the reader visualize what they're going to do next. And the decision for the next action should be in line with your character's personality and values. And then you want to show how your protagonist sees success from this decision. When they make the decision and they make the decision, usually it's because they see this result in the future, all right? But you want to make the decision difficult enough that the reader has doubts about whether your character can do what they decide. So, as you can see, even though there isn't a lot of action in this scene, there are several challenges for your protagonist, and and the reader follows along with their decision making process and their decision choice, which is the goal for the next proactive scene. So reactive scenes provide a way for your character to make really bad decisions, and that will create even greater conflict for your story. So just think of these two alternating scenes and how they work. And because they're so basic, you have so much to play with. So even though it may seem formulaic that you have a proactive scene and then you have a reactive scene, and that sets up the goal for the proactive scene, and then there's a frustration which sets up the reaction scene, and you alternate them because of the way that you can expand what your character thinks and does in each scene and how they make decisions. It really helps keep your reader in suspense. Okay, now they've made this decision, and the reader wonders, is this really the right decision for them? This is what you want your reader to be thinking when your character makes a decision. So, why does this alternating scene structure help? Um, I know when I first heard about it years ago, I was a little skeptical because I felt the same way. I was like, I don't know, this is going to be very obvious to my readers. But um, my stories went nowhere when I wasn't using this alternating scene method. And readers want and expect your characters to have problems and to overcome obstacles. That's, the juice of the story. And unless you are very compulsive, you don't need to write these lists down, what I just talked about. You just want to get the concept in your head so it's in there while you're writing your scene, and you know you're writing a proactive scene with a goal, a conflict, a goal, an obstacle, and a conflict, and a result, and then the the conflict presents a decision. In the reactive scene, the character has to make a decision. So basically, what you need to know is which type of scene you're writing and what the obstacles are and what the action is and what it's either the action or the decision making, and then write the scene. So conflict, physical, psychological, or mental in each scene will keep your readers engaged and add variety to your story. So I hope that helps. I'm taking a crime writing course with the novelist Vasim Khan, and I have a scene writing exercise to do today. So I'm going to go through those lists for myself today and work on my scene. And I hope that helps you. Let's see. Yes. So I don't see your name, but it sounds like the reactive scene is the main tool to show how the protagonist's character is developing. That's exactly right, because that's why I'm saying it sounds simplistic, but it's really rich because you are going to be showing how the character makes decisions, whether they're good ones or bad ones. You're showing their thought process and you're revealing their character as you go. That's a really great comment. Thank you so much. And that's really all I had to say today. And I hope you're having fun with your writing. I am. And I will see you next week.